children,
Also children, very much so.
but they're not annoying. I mean, they are annoying, but they're not annoying tonight. One of them is very sick, so that is unfortunate. But hey, it's Kitty B6 season, so just comes with the territory.
I mean, it's pretty. Yeah, your kids are always. Your kids are always
Yes,
sick.
yes, that is an accurate statement. That is not fake news. That is truthful news.
So, but welcome,
Yes, yes.
Gregson. What are we talking about today?
Well, we're doing a bunch of interesting stuff today because we are going to be talking about some things that you may or may not want to hear us talk about, but we're going to talk about them anyway because it's fun. Um, First thing is we're car guys, but we like a lot of stuff. And I think we're going to talk about the first round of the NFL playoffs today because it was pretty bonkers with a couple of things that happened yesterday. Not just yesterday, but over the weekend and into Monday. So we're going to talk about that. So if you like the NFL and you do like cars, please come chat with us and please stay because we're going to be here for a couple of hours and it's going to be great. We are also going to be doing a stream supporter topic. We have a supporter group here on Facebook called Shift Squad. You can go to our Facebook page and click the button, and you will go to that page, and it's a supporter group. You pay in, and you get more access to us. We do stream topics. We do other things like helping pick part of Chad's car, which we talked about last week on stream. So really cool. If you want to support us, you can go do that there. That helps us to create more cool content for you guys. But a stream topic from our supporter, Aaron, who is also going to help us build a car, is coming up a little bit later as well. And Chad, I've forgotten the third one. What is the third one?
I'll let you know.
Okay, sweet. We have a third topic. And you know what? If you hold on 1 second, I can go to the chat and figure out what it is. So don't go anywhere. I think the part of the NFL playoffs one is we're going to try to predict the Super Bowl champ based on what just happened. Oh, and you were going to give me a would you rather.
Yes. Never. I mean, would you rather?
And that one's about cars. So
Yes.
the first thing I got to say actually is for those that are watching the stream right now, a huge thank you actually to our Facebook fans specifically. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you so much for watching on YouTube. But specifically to our Facebook fans, we've had a pretty insane last 7 days as far as reels are concerned. And reels are those little short form vertical videos that you're all seeing all over the place. So everyone combats TikTok at this point. But we've had a couple of reels go absolutely viral, which is pretty crazy for us to think about. We have one that's just at a car wash that's up almost at 5 million views. We have a couple that are just about at 1 million views and many that are over 500,000 views. So huge thank you if you're watching the stream and you watch those. We like making them. They're fun. So thank you guys so much for watching. And it actually has helped us to, earn more to again be able to bring you more content. So thank you guys for watching. It's just a huge plus, and it's a lot of fun to do. We make them for here, Instagram, and we're going to be putting them all over our YouTube channels as well. So stay tuned all over the place for more fun, cool content for both long form and short form. So again, huge thank you to all of our fans, especially those on Facebook right now, which are just sending these videos into the stratosphere, which is really cool to see.
Yes. Greg. Well said. So just real quick, Steve, you actually made him giggle with your Subaru one, which was nice.
Yes, and that wasn't just specifically Subaru. That was literally all car forums. I was just like, what's the first car forum I joined? Subaru. Okay, that's the one.
Yes, car forums are they're a great resource that isn't a great resource, if you catch my meaning.
Yes. Honestly, I feel like Facebook groups are a better resource now. The search function on Facebook groups is so much better than every forum ever.
Yes, but you still have to wade through the guy who's tired of answering the same question over and over, even though he doesn't have to respond.
Yeah, but the nice thing about Facebook is you can block that person. On forums, you cannot do such a thing. So
Yeah.
that is a plus, I must say. I do give Facebook very big credit where credit's due. I can block that person so I don't have to see their BS anymore for my entire life. It's great.
Yes. Excellent feature. But yeah, I think I've been a part of one decent car forum, and that was,
Yeah.
or not car forum, but car group, and that was actually uh, the Volvo group, the C30 group. You know, it's not without
There you
its
go.
not without its foibles.
That's
And
right.
and you know, it's far from perfect, but it's by far and away better than the Lexus, BMW, and even the Mustang groups. To be honest, although the Mustang groups are kind of quiet in a weird
Yeah.
way. Uh,
Well, I mean, I think it's just because that particular car's been around for what is it now?
7.
60 years?
Oh, the
70
Mustang in
years?
general. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like, yeah, just the Mustang. Like, what at this point? Like, what else is there to say? I mean, it's new people coming in, I'm sure, but like everything that you could say has been said at this point.
Yeah, but it's just like anywhere else, right? You got people asking for this, asking for that. You know, what exhaust is this? What wheels? What's
Sure.
like the typical forum questions? You know, what exhaust? What intake? What
Yeah, yeah.
what's the biggest wheel I can fit without rubbing? You know, those sorts of things. And I mean, not for nothing, the people at Bugs, you know, should make a website with all these the top 10 forum questions answered about this car. And then boom, like not for nothing, I don't think that's a terrible idea for a website idea.
I don't think it's a terrible idea for a website at all. I think it's actually a pretty fantastic one. And for those watching, patent pending, trademark, and registered trademark. So don't steal it.
Well, I'm sure stuff like that exists, but like think about it. Like
Oh, probably.
you could do like at least 17 different Volvo models just by yourself.
Yeah, pretty much. Yep, pretty much. I've kicked around. So speaking of, I've kicked around an idea in my head. I'm wondering, could we start a website where it's selling Volvos basically, and we don't sell it. It's sort of, and it's not like an auction site. It's more of just like, hey, give us $20, list your Volvo, for sale, and share the link. Create a community around it. I've been kicking that idea around. It's not a bad idea. And a guy in the M3 world named Spencer, he started a couple of good ones, M3 List, and I think M3 Parts or something like that. And they've gone really well. So I'm curious. I'm curious if it would actually work in the Volvo community, just because, to your point, there doesn't seem to be like a really central place to like sell Volvos. There's Sweet Speed. There's a bunch of for sale groups on Facebook, but there's not really like central place to do it. And I think the community may need that. I think it might be a good idea. And it's pretty easy to set up. You just basically be like, hey, here's a website. You write the stuff. We approve the post, and here's a PayPal link for donation. Done. Like, it's very easy to set up.
Or we just be an offshoot of VinWiki just with Volvos. Volvo Wiki.
I like that too. We should just call it Wiki.
Voki. Voki. Oh, wait.
I like it.
Um,
Voki, hockey, NHL. Done. Got it.
Scotty Cameron. Just touching on chat real quick. Steve assumes all the Mustang guys are quiet because they're in jail facing felony charges for accidentally taking people out, trying to Ken Block to honor him. Well, to be fair, dumbasses have been doing that before the untimely passing of a legend. And also,
Yeah.
yeah, I want my Mustang
Not
back.
inaccurate.
Justin can't go to forums for his GN because he gets mocked horribly with any questions. Been there. So he figures it out until stuff breaks and then keep trying. I mean,
Therein lies the forum reel that I made.
I know you're... Yeah. Steve, I know you're kidding, buddy. Don't take me saying anything really here too seriously. Greg will attest in the damn near 25 years he's known me. that
Ugh.
that
God, it's that long. Jesus.
that general wise assness and sarcasm is how I hug. So
That's
so
right.
that sort of stuff. But and we'll see when you get back. But yeah, it's
Yes.
like I don't know, man. And then like I said, there's still people in the Volvo. Like the biggest thing that bugs me about this stuff, and then we'll kind of end that rant and kind of go into our side topic here for the day.
Yeah, yeah.
But in the time that someone could have typed out something snarky like use the search function, Google it, do this, do that, that's been asked to death, that's been done to this, that's if you're not going to take the time to provide the answer, if it's a short, easy answer, nobody's making you answer. Like, and a lot of these guys I see who do that type of stuff, you're adding no value. And then to Justin's
Right.
point, right? Like, he doesn't use that resource because people are idiots. So,
Yeah.
like I always said this, if you're on a forum or a Facebook page or something, someone asks a question and you can help, try to help them out. If it's you're tired of answering that question, you have that right too. Stay quiet. At the end of the day, you're on this page because you have a shared interest in a car. You know, not to prove how superior your knowledge base is over the next guy. Because not for nothing, if I'm on a C30 page, I see something I was like, or I have a question, I ask Rich Forsyth. The end.
Yeah.
And then what anybody
Yep.
else says, we're just gonna
Give him a thumbs up and move on.
yeah.
Yeah.
Michael apparently it's not just restricted to the cars. He gets it in the Buell forms, which are motorcycles, I believe. I believe they're Harley sports bikes, or they started out that way. I don't know if they're their own company.
Yes.
I haven't really looked at motor.
Very cool.
So, but yes. So,
Yeah. Let's get into a topic that we both love because it is going on right now, and there is a decent amount of crossover between cars and sports. So, did you watch any of the NFL American football games this past weekend?
no, I watched the NFL full stop football games.
Yes, I just wanted to do that to ruffle your feathers, but yes.
Yes, all of them. I'm actually a
Sweet.
pretty large.
I didn't watch all of them, but I did watch the highlights from all of them, and I watched 2 full ones.
Okay,
So,
we
what I
we
think-
started out the playoff season, as it were, with just an absolute beatdown of the fighting Geno Smiths, aka the Sea Chickens, aka Greg's favorite football team.
Yes. So I was gonna say, let's do it this way. Let's go. I have literally my sports app open with all the scores. So I'm gonna go down the list, and I think we can just talk about each game as we go down the list.
Okay.
So that, of course, I've favorited the Seahawks because they're my favorite team, and they're at the top of the list because the favorites always go to the top when you favorite something on any of these apps. So 49ers 41, Seahawks 23. It's a tale of 2 halves in that game because the Seahawks basically dominated the first half, and they were up 17-16 at the half when I think the Niners got a field goal to take the lead in the last minute, and then the Seahawks immediately drove down and got another field goal just to be like, we could do that too. And then the second half happened, and the Seahawks decided to put in the JV team for some reason. I'm not entirely sure why, but, why not put in 5th string everybody? Or at least they did that mentally. Because
Well,
it was
there's
just bad.
2 things at play here. Number one, the 49ers are the most talented team in football. They just happen to have Mr. Irrelevant playing quarterback. That's not a diss on Brock Purdy at all. He was the last pick in the NFL draft. That is considered Mr. Irrelevant. And little known fact about that draft pick is they get a trophy. And do you know what that trophy is called?
No.
The Lozman Trophy.
Really?
Yes.
I didn't realize that's a thing.
Yeah, it's for
Because it's the losing man trophy, or is it named after a person?
no. Well, if you have the Heisman Trophy,
Oh, the lows. I get it. I get it. I understand now.
so in that game, I mean, you either have the Seahawks checking out or they just played above their heads, staying with the 49ers until the 49ers figured stuff out, and then just they're the better team. They walked away.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, look, I am absolutely fan freaking ecstatic that the Seahawks made the playoffs at all because they have Geno Smith as their quarterback when they got rid of Russell Wilson, who let your team aside for a second, is a all-world quarterback, will be in the Hall of Fame one day, is an amazing NFL quarterback as a Seahawk. There's no real question about that. Took him to 2 Super Bowls, won one of them, is a criminally, I'd say, underrated quarterback due to his size. And no one really thinks of, like, even when he was doing like really well, I don't think a lot of people considered him a top 5 quarterback in the NFL most of the time, when I believe he absolutely was during his prime. But, once they got rid of him and they didn't really find a replacement, I'm just like, okay, and it's rebuild time. Here we go. But then all of a sudden, West Virginia Geno Smith decides to show up and be an amazing game manager and actually pass the ball well. So I'm like, wow, holy crap, this is incredible. So I know we lost. I'm bummed about it, but making the playoffs after trading your over a decade franchise quarterback that will be in the Hall of Fame someday, huge win for the Seahawks, quite frankly.
That brings up a good point. We did not get the Russell Wilson we ordered. I demand a refund.
And I almost just spit that out. that is very accurate.
To those of you who don't know,
thank you for the draft picks. Very much appreciate those.
To those of you who don't know, I am a ride or die Broncos fan, so we're just not going to touch on that.
Yes. So I hope he picks up next season for you, honestly, because I do like Russell. He's a good guy. He's a good dude.
Yeah.
I also hope that your coaching staff decides to not make him a pocket passer and let him do what he's supposed to be.
That's why Nathaniel Hackett was for any head coach to have started a season, like started a regular season, actually playing games.
Yeah.
He had the second shortest tenure of any NFL head coach, second only to the Gropemeister himself, Urban Meyer.
Yeah.
So that's a list you don't want to be on, but it also kind of shows. Like, Russ was mismanaged. I mean, you saw signs of life in the last few weeks of the season, but, they are not in the playoffs. But speaking of the last few weeks of the Broncos season and the team they beat in the last week of the regular season, if you listen closely, you can still hear all of the Chargers choking.
Yes, that is the next game on the list, actually. Jaguars 31, Chargers 30, and welcome to the NFL, Trevor Lawrence. That was his coming out party for sure. And yes, the Chargers, I wanted to make mention of Seth about how about Tampa Bay taking out Dallas, or getting taken out by Dallas. Didn't see that coming. We're going to get to that game in a minute, so hang on. But the Chargers, I feel like they shook hands with the Cowboys and just inherited their usual choke.
Everything but the kicking.
Yes, exactly. And we'll get to that. But yeah, the Chargers, man, what a choke fest. I can't believe that they lost that game.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing about that game. And I understand this is going to sound like hindsight being 2020, but the method in which, I mean, arguably the worst half of football Trevor Lawrence has ever played in his life was in the first half. But for
4 interceptions overall, yeah.
But for some stupid reason, I sat there and I was thinking, I don't think this game's over. Like, 27 points is a lot, don't get me wrong, and I didn't think they were going to possibly come back and overall win the game, but I'm like, they're going to make this interesting. And, I mean, Doug Peterson is a quarterback whisperer. He's a team whisperer. He got the Dogs of Philadelphia to win a Super Bowl.
Yep.
But, yeah, I mean, not for nothing. I know. Here's the funniest thing about that next game before we move on to the next one. The Chargers today fired their offensive coaching staff. The defense is what let them down.
I was
They
going
were
to say,
spotted at
why
20
did they fire the offense? The offense is actually decent.
because Drew Staley is a defensive head coach, and to admit defeat there, they might have. I still think they should get rid of him. I mean, playing your starters against the Broncos in a meaningless game had the exact wrong effect. You had Mike Williams out, arguably your best receiver. You basically played your starters, and then the Broncos and the artist formerly known as Russell Wilson beat you. That's not a good push into the playoffs.
Not a good look.
So, but good on Jacksonville.
And yes, good for them. I'm excited to see what happens with Trevor Lawrence in the future. He's obviously he's a decent NFL quarterback. I'm not saying he's good yet. I'm not saying he's great, but he's definitely not bad. So he's got the talent. I think if he can pull sort of what Daniel Jones did this year and become a real good game manager, turn it around, and make it so that your team really has like a fighting chance, then I think yes. Because I still don't think the Jags are going to win the Super Bowl. I mean, I don't think that they're there. I think they're going to get beat by the next team or at maximum the team after. Like,
there's absolute
past the conference finals.
I mean, they got that fight in them, but they're not beating the Chiefs. There's just not happening.
No, I don't think so.
Arguably, one of the more interesting games and an upset just that Miami covered were the Bills game. I mean, Buffalo came out, then they fell on their face, and then it was a back and forth game after that. The Bills are kind of my sentimental team right now. I'd like to see them get to and win the Super Bowl. Obviously, there's the whole Hamlin situation. You know, thank God the guy looks like he's going to be making a pretty full recovery as far as being a normal person. I don't think
that's great.
We don't even need to talk about his NFL future because, frankly, he beat the odds. I remember reading somewhere that there are two places where he could have had that particular injury, and survived was a hospital and an NFL field because of all the medical personnel and stuff like that. So, I mean, like to quote his doctors, he won the game of life. So good on him. I'm glad to see him doing well. I think he's going to carry a lot of the Bills and from that emotional standpoint. But the Bills are flawed. They don't really run the ball that well. Miami and their 27th round draft pick quarterback took him to the brink. The guy, what is it? I forget the coach's name, but he won. Totally mismanaged the clock, as we all know. How do you take a delay a game penalty on 4th and 1? Like, that's pee-wee stuff.
I don't know.
Secondly, he was ripping vapes on the sideline. And thirdly, he just looks like the type of guy who's going to sit here and spend 2.5 hours telling you about the new IPA he tried and all of its benefits.
Dude, I don't think anyone's had the take yet, but I feel he is a modern young Vince Lombardi. He's a sort of DGAF guy. He seems like a football wizard. He seems like a really good football strategist. 4th and 1 delay of game aside,
except for the most important one in the season. Just saying.
But I mean, he's a young coach. Like I don't expect him to have that. You know, who's the longtime Eagles coach? I think he's still the Chiefs coach with an epic mustache.
Andy Reid.
I don't expect him to have Andy Reid seasoning yet. So, but I do feel like he is sort of a cool next wave of like NFL coach, which is interesting to me. Sort of like this old guard is moving out, and he's like the new hotness that's moving in. I like that.
I have to stop you there. No, he is not a young Vince Lombardi. As someone who has read, any sports fans out here are looking for
young modern.
Yes, but no. So Vince Lombardi played football at Fordham, was part of the 7 Blocks of Granite, one of the most famous offensive lines in early college football history.
Yeah.
Then proceeded to become a coach at Army, where he coached those teams pretty decent success. He was on the coaching staff during the actual test cheating scandal at Army that they made a miniseries about on a bunch of years ago that starred the oldest brother from Home Improvement. And then he was a coordinator for the Giants. Now think about this Giants team. Your offensive coordinator was Vince Lombardi.
Mm-hmm.
Your defensive coordinator was Tom Landry.
Okay.
That is the most goated coaching staff of all time.
Yeah, it doesn't even matter any other coach. Just stop there.
And then from there he went to whereas I keep wanting to call him McDaniel. I don't think that's right. Like I said, he just looks like he's really, really into, lifted Subaru wagons, Outbacks mostly.
Yeah, I like it.
He's an analytics guy. He's an analytics guy,
right.
and he's like that sort of a thing. So it's coming from a point of, X plus Y equals omega, kind of a deal.
Right.
And I think to your point,
he's football Billy Bean at this point.
In a certain respect, yeah. So, but he never played the game like Billy Bean did.
Right.
But so I think he made a young coach mistake. But here's the whole thing: the whole way that whole organization handled the Tua situation this season is damn near criminal. Don't get me started on a rant of the NFL caring about their players' health or concussions, for that matter, because they don't. Simple fact of this is watch a game, see how many guys aren't wearing their mouthpiece. What were you taught as a kid is the first line of concussion defense your mouthpiece. So if they gave two craps, they'd make that a penalty. But I don't know. I don't think they should fire him per se. I think they should give him another chance, but I also think, Tua needs to take his millions and ride off into the sunset. 3 concussions, 1 year, not good. But speaking of good,
the game I thought was interesting just because it's division rivals, and I think that's part of the reason why it went so well.
You have that. You have familiarity. It does, like I said, it does raise concerns about Buffalo's defense and their lack of a running game and their ability to kind of grind away games. But like I said, speaking of not good, Kirk Cousin on 4th and 8 or 4th and 6.
Yeah. The Vikings, speaking of collapse, the Vikings just.
But that's the Vikings' MO. I literally we do a pool, and I was like, my lock of the week is the Giants because they're playing the Vikings, who for the longest part of the season had that their winning record, not even like a 9-8, 10-7 kind of a deal. I think they finished something like
13-4.
13-4, and up until the last, I think, 2 weeks of the season, they had a negative point differential.
Yeah, like that's a problem, and it's a problem that's going to be exploited in the playoffs
by Danny Dimes.
Right, right. So, look, when you have a negative point differential getting into the playoffs in any league, and I don't think that happens very often, if really ever, you're going to lose in the playoffs. Just the odds are not in your favor. Basically, is what it boils down to.
You see it. You see it in baseball every now and again, just because of the length of the season, and especially in baseball.
Yeah.
The difference between
every now and again, not every season.
Right. I think Danny Dimes is adding numbers to his contract for next season. I think
definitely yes.
I think he went from midway through the season, so to speak. The Giants are playing well, but is Daniel Jones the quarterback of our future? And yes, he's answering that, and now he's just padding his numbers. The question with the Giants is, if you're signing Danny, what is Saquon's contract going to look like? Because there is no successful NFL team in the last 15 years who has a big money running back, who has a running back who's in the top 10 payroll wise. Maybe not top 10, but you don't pay running backs in this NFL. Up until this season, because he missed up until last season. Saquon was being out produced by Philip Lindsay, who was an undrafted running back. So I know Saquon's alma mater and where he goes. So I know your pants get a little tight when we start talking about Penn State guys. So
not running backs.
Listen, you be nice to the first Kurt Warner.
Look. Penn State running backs have a very deep history of having a lot of hype and not producing. There are two that buck that trend. One of them is Saquon, because he's been actually fairly decent when he hasn't been injured. And the other is an announcer. So...
I don't know. I think Larry Johnson had a great career, even if he's a little too off the deep end in conspiracy theorists these days.
Yeah, I mean he had a decent run, honestly. He had a decent run, but yeah, I don't know. Like, you know, every one of them has been like super hyped. Like Kajana Carter, Curtis Enos. What are some of the other guys? Man. There was one that was there like right after I was there. That was, like,
shoot, what's his name?
Catcher.
Speaking of the Giants and their next opponent, the Eagles running back was Saquon's successor, Miles Sanders.
Sanders, and he was very good, and he is good. I would say
he's no Morelli though.
Put in Morelli, said nobody ever.
Said our entire section at that one game. Just saying.
Nobody ever after Penn State. But I mean, pay Daniel Jones because he's playing like he's in a contract year for sure, and keep Saquon's contract a little smaller because he's good. You should definitely lock him up, but you know he should also understand that it's not a running back's NFL anymore. This is not Emmitt Smith, Barry Sanders territory. Like
and then just ask.
Doesn't not how it works.
Well, just ask the Cowboys how that Zeke contract is going for him.
I was just going to say, yes, as soon as he got paid, he turned into a dumpster fire.
All right, and then moving on to many people's darling of the AFC, the team that a lot of people were saying, if not Kansas City or even over Kansas City, the Bengals, who needed the worst quarterback sneak in the history of the NFL, and then a defensive lineman somehow not being caught by a wide receiver, running back,
anyone. Well, they were all in the pile, Chad. It was literally like 10 people, and then Andrews, who somehow got out of the pile and tried to run him down with 3 other Bengals around him.
But Cincinnati won the game, squeaked by. It is always cause for celebration when the Ravens are eliminated from the playoffs and it is tradition at this point that they were like, we're good, we're not so good, we're the underdog story, we're gonna do damage. Oh, we lost. Love it.
Well, it also doesn't help that your MVP quarterback hasn't played the last 6 weeks. So
he has one playoff win.
Oh no, totally. And look, and you remember who was a monster for the Ravens in the playoffs? Joe Flacco. So I totally understand about Ravens and quarterbacks, about being like meh during the regular season and then destroying the playoffs, and now vice versa, because Lamar is doing the exact opposite that Joe Flacco did. So, I mean, that game was very interesting. I watched that game, and the Ravens actually dominated that game pretty well. I'd say that they were 60 to 65% to actually win that game until that craziness happened. And the Bengals definitely got exploited by the Ravens defense. I think their offense. Well, the biggest issue is their offensive line, because the Bengals offensive line was, I think the stat came up, for 13 or 14 weeks they had the same crew, and they were just jonesing and rocking and jiving together. And then all of a sudden the injury bug bit. And now they only have 2 season starters on the front line. And it showed with, I think 5 or 6 sacks of Joe Burrow. So I think that if whoever plays the Bengals next, which I think is, the Bills, I think if the Bills can get some edge pressure, they're basically just going to steamroll the Bengals, quite frankly. But yeah, like the the Ravens definitely they could have used Lamar in that game. Not that what was his name, Huntley? I think he did a very good job of managing that game.
Until the fumble.
Be well until the I mean even the fumble honestly because it was a call by the coaching staff and he jumped over. He should have realized that, oh wow, I'm still a whole yard from the end zone, and then like tucked it.
Right.
But
That's so. That brings me back to the Jacksonville game when they went for two. I think it was for two or maybe the touchdown. But when Lawrence was a yard out and just went yoink, and then
yeah,
to get it to cross the plane. But the play was called for it to be a Bush push, right? Like you remember Reggie Bush pushing Matt Leinart in a game against Notre Dame back in the day.
yep,
And he decided to go over the top where his two guys couldn't even. They're like,
yeah.
well, fuck. So
Pretty
like,
much.
here's the thing, right? The Ravens have so heavily invested themselves in having Lamar Jackson as their quarterback. They've almost backed themselves into a corner because let's just say Lamar goes elsewhere. They have a tight end, which is good. They have a decent defense, but their offense is so built upon kind of running the ball, almost an old school mentality with new school implementation with the way they run the read option and all this other sort of stuff and everything. Yeah. But yes, love seeing the Ravens go out. Cincinnati, like I said, if you just look at wildcard weekend in a vacuum, it's hard to bet against Kansas City coming out of the AFC. Which
I didn't see anyone that was just like lighting the world on fire.
I thought
even the Bills, especially.
I thought Buffalo. They came out with their heads on fire, but that lull. It's almost like they peak, and then they sort of plateau, and they just kind of hold on. The good news is that they don't have to see KC until the AFC title game. But
and then the last game. Let's go to that because it's the final one, which is what Seth talked about. So Seth, if you're still here, we're finally talking about it now. Cowboys Bucks, and one can only hope Tom Brady's last game because just go away at this point. I didn't realize that the Cowboys signed prime Troy Aikman again. That was very interesting. That I also didn't know that he changed his name to Dak Prescott because Dak was playing out of his freaking mind last night. Everything was a laser to every receiver and tight end. They had a decent running game, even though Zeke was basically none of it.
He's
and
behind
the
Pollard
defense
now.
was fantastic.
I mean, I saw this game being.
I haven't seen that Cowboys team all year.
Yeah, I didn't. That game I think most people got wrong. I did not see Cowboys winning, and if they did, it was by a pretty low margin. But it just shows you how not it this year's Tampa Bay team was. Definitely a team you want to get divorced over.
Yeah, what a terrible decision. Like, look, I understand the whole mentality of like wanting to come back and dude, you're 45 and your family could probably use you to like not be around football for a while, so give it up. You've won 7.
So
F off.
So, yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's just an indictment more on Tampa. Dallas does this stuff all the time. They're good. They're bad. They're good. Oh, we're good. We're good. We're good. We're good. Get dominated by the Commanders. And then they come out like this.
Right.
Like, we won't. They got to go to San Fran. That's the team that knocked them out last year. San Fran is stacked.
Yep.
So that we'll learn some things about Dallas then. The only thing holding back San Francisco is when does Brock Purdy have that moment of rookie quarterback? When does he have that moment of, oh boy, things are spiraling way out of control? Or he makes a couple mistakes and then now has to press to come back or so. When does that moment happen?
Yeah.
It could happen against a team like Dallas with Parsons, another Penn State grad, uh,
Yeah.
with the pressure and kind of speeding up his internal clock and everything like that. But yeah, so just real.
If Dallas plays like they did against Tampa, they'll win. Because the 49ers didn't show me anything special in the first half of that game against the Seahawks. Second half was very good. But if Dallas plays the same way they did against Tampa, kicking aside, because they really got to sort that out. But kicking aside, they'll dominate and they will win that game easily, because that was a very impressive game by Dallas, I'll say.
Absolutely. So, just to put a bow on this, because it's been a bit of a minute, a little longer than I
Yes.
had anticipated going on this. Your Super Bowl champion. Give.
I'm gonna go Chiefs. They've been there, they've done it, and I feel like they are the best equipped to do so.
See, that's the smart choice because you don't see a threat coming out of it.
I just don't.
So the Super Bowl I think we're gonna get is going to be Niners Chiefs, a rematch.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Okay.
I think if Brock continues to play within himself, I think it's Niners. Do I think that's going to happen? Well, I have to because I'm not picking an AFC West team to win the Super Bowl. Just not happening. But I could easily see one of... See, that's the thing. The 49ers are the prohibitive favorite in the NFC. But at any moment, your 7th round draft pick at quarterback might revert to form. So that's the scary thing there. I just don't see anything wrong with the Chiefs. Like, I hate to say that as a Broncos fan, but I just don't see it. But
I don't know. I would say the Niners aren't even the favorite. I would say Eagles, just because of the season they had.
Is Jalen healthy?
No, but I still think a half haggard Jalen is a better option than Brock Purdy come a conference final.
Right, but when you surround the set, like, let's put it this way, right? You have weapons in Philly. There's no doubting that. But then you have Debo, McCaffrey, Kittle, the fastest fullback in the NFL, who they utilize. I don't know. That's why they play the games, and that's why the football's so interesting. That's why we get into it, because okay, logic says this. Oh, my heart wants this. And oftentimes, and I'll end this topic with this. And oftentimes, football delivers, more so in recent years, but football always delivers. That's why it's my favorite sport to watch. Not necessarily my favorite sport, but my favorite sport to watch. And yeah, I'm looking forward to the games this week. We'll recap and we'll figure out everything that Greg was wrong about.
I'm cool with that. Yes. Let's continue this conversation around Super Bowl time and see exactly what pans out.
Alrighty.
And now we can get onto cars. But first, let's talk about the DIY thing, because that is our next topic. One of them is, what is your worst DIY sort of nightmare story? And that's going to be the next topic. And that came from Aaron Whitesell, who is obviously a friend of the channel, supporter of the channel, in our support group. And if you want to support us, you can go to our Facebook page, facebook.com/shifting lanes, and click the support button, and you'll be in our support group. But the topic was, what's your worst DIY mistake, essentially, and your sort of biggest DIY WTF moment. And Charlie has a good one here in chat. I was changing my front brakes, and when I got done, the driver front wheel wouldn't spin freely, so I reached in to start the car with it still on a jack. I forgot to take it out of first, and the car took off and crashed into my back deck step railing. That is a bad one, and I am super glad you are here to tell that tale, because that could have gone way worse for you. And I'm glad no one was hurt in that. He said, I was hanging out of the car when it took off. Obviously, you're still here, Charlie, so glad you are. And I would imagine no one else was around when that happened, so I would imagine no one else was hurt. Hopefully not, but that's a bad one. Charlie leads it off with sort of a pretty crazy example. Chad, what is your biggest DIY WTF moment?
Um,
I
Probably
heard, I already know the answer to this, and it's hucking an airbox across a garage.
no, that needed to happen.
Oh,
Um, that airbox needed to go for a ride. Uh, it was poorly engineered. It was stubborn. Um, it would not release itself, removing years from my life. As far as like DIY nightmare to do, that's up there on the top of my list. Headers on the my first Focus is up there on that list. But as far as like DIY mistakes, um, probably the one I keep coming back to is the TCV on the C30, and I plumbed it backwards. So when the vacuum lines were showing boost pressure, it was showing the exact opposite on the TCV. The whole reason so to those of you who know the C30 story, they know I got the C30. I immediately did some fixes to it. We thought we had an issue. I don't even remember what it was, but it was recommended to me that I replace the TCV. So one of the first mods I did was an Elevate TCV, and then as I got down the modding rabbit hole, the it became talking to guys like, again, Rich Forsyth. If we were talking about him a little earlier, talking with him and a lot of tuners, shark tuning in this case, about what components work best with their tunes, and et cetera, et cetera. And the TCV was something that came up. So I went back to a stock TCV, plumbed the wastegate correct, but everything else backwards. So the car would get on boost and then immediately just, nope. Like the wastegate would just shut. And like the computer would freak out. So it took me forever to figure that out because I was 99.9% sure I had plumbed it correctly. And as it turns out, I had plumbed it very much incorrectly. And that was like 3 months of not being able to enjoy the car and chasing down every little thing I could possibly think of. And also the most irritating thing about that whole thing is that in the process of doing that, in the process of trying to figure out what had gone wrong, I took it down to a shop. And these guys are supposed to be Volvo guys, European car guys. And they were like, no, everything's fine, which tells me right off the bat that they never checked anything, which is pretty infuriating, especially for like a guy like me who's like, I am giving you money to do what I can't. And it really annoyed me. I ended up having some other not so great experiences. But yeah, the TCV, 100% for me. The number one thing I screwed up in recent memory. I'm sure there's others if I really sat back and thought about it. But I mean, the DIY Lambo doors on my Focus was another one. Those were involuntarily Lamboed.
that after it wasn't the airbox, Chuck, that's what I thought you were going for.
But my dad and I actually removed the door, got the hardware, put the door back on, and had it work correct. And here's the funny thing. We got the door on. We had scheduled an appointment with the body shop. And it was the day before I was going to the body shop when I got in my accident with it and totaled it. So,
Ugh,
but
that's brutal, man.
yeah.
That is really brutal. I gotta be honest. Uh, so after lots of hard thought and clicking around our own YouTube channel to figure out what my answer to this would be, it actually is a very unfortunate one, and one that was actually gave me a little bit of PTSD because now I worry about cars rolling down my driveway and into the street and hitting some people. So I was working on my uh, old V70R, and it was right when I first got it. It was the blue one. It was the magic blue with the Atacama interior. Gorgeous car. To this day, still my favorite car that I've ever owned. This thing's getting real close, but still my favorite car I've ever owned, just because of the noise it made, the utility of it, the uniqueness of it, the quirkiness of it. Aston Martin aside, that's sort of a different animal. But the V70R was definitely my favorite one, I would say still. So I was working on that in the garage, and at the time I owned that, which I was trying to do. I think I did plugs and coils that day. I pulled that car out into the street. I pulled my WRX into the garage because that's where that car stayed, because that was my daily. It was much nicer than the V70R at the time because it was still, basically new. It was stock, and I was going to end up selling it, so I wanted it to stay in the garage and not get, all weathered. So I pulled it into the garage, and I thought I had engaged the e-brake, but I hadn't, or I had, and the Subaru decided to let go. So what happened was my garage that I'm in here, you can't really see it just because everything's all leveled out. It's sort of on a very slight incline, and most garages should be. So if you have a Center Hall Colonial in New Jersey, most of them should have a couple of degrees, maybe one or two at minimum, to be able to have water sort of run out of the garage so that nothing is standing in pools. So mine does have a bit of an incline. And if I pulled the car out, you could see it on the wall, where towards the back of the garage where the doors are, it's wider on the concrete little retaining wall, which is about yay. And towards the front of the house over here, it's about yay. So you can see that there's a gradient to it. Well, I guess when I ripped the e-brake and got out and went back down to move my V70R into the back into the driveway, because I can't park on my street here. That's a big point of the story. I can't park on the street here in my town because from 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. they issue tickets, and I have been issued a ticket, a parking ticket right outside my own home here, which is hilariously stupid because it's rural New Jersey and these streets are wide enough to have two 18-wheelers next to us, or next to each other, unloading houses. That's how wide the streets are here. It's plenty of room. People could park on the street. It's not a big deal. So I don't know why that's in place other than a big cash grab from the town. That aside, I went down my driveway, got to the V70R, looked back up the driveway, and I see my WRX rolling out. And my first thought was, why is my wife moving my car? And the fact was no one was in the car because it was just rolling freely. I had forgot to put it in gear. Well, apart from the e-brake letting go, I didn't put it in first because in here, the doors usually close, and if the car's going to roll, it's going to roll into the door. But I didn't put it in first, stupidly. And what happened was the car rolled backwards. And of course, there's a dad and a kid riding their bike, and they are at the V70R when I see this thing. And I yelled at them, "Get out of the way!" And they go up the street, basically to the next driveway as fast as they could. And the WRX comes rolling back down the driveway, and thankfully doesn't go into a house across the street. That basically would have been a disaster. Somehow it rolls on an angle and smashes right into the V70R. And there's a whole video I did many years ago, 3 or 4 years ago at this point, actually 4 or 5 years ago at this point, about how that happened and what had happened. But even 4 or 5 years later to this day, still remember it, still, have dreams about like cars rolling and running over people. So definitely some PTSD from that one for sure. But that's the worst DIY mistake I've ever had. And it was not fun. And it is still haunting me to this day. And every manual car I've, owned or driven since then has been put into first, regardless of where I park. So live and learn. Thankfully, no one was hurt. I did have a split second of, can I catch this car? And then decided I should just get out of the way because, I'm in sandals for one as this is happening. So definitely not going to be catching any cars. Didn't get some random Captain America superhero strength at any point. But yeah, it was not a fun time at all. So that was my probably my worst DIY mistake. Um, would love to hear some of yours. I think we got some in chat. We already talked about Charlie's. Thank you for sharing that story, Charlie. Doug, welcome, Doug. Thank you for joining as always. Uh, 500 miles on my first motorcycle. Was doing the required break-in service. Oh, do I have a crying child? Hold on 1 second. My youngest is my youngest is not feeling very well, so I just got to check here. On this sick child. So, can you please go to chat and entertain chat for a few minutes?
Yes. Before you leave, did you touch on Steve and or
Doug.
Doug? Doug's.
No, I was just about to talk when I did that.
Gotcha.
Oh, actually, Kate just went in there, so I'm okay. But I need to
Wives.
go check on him. So you
Good
do
luck.
you go for Doug's stuff and Steve's stuff, and I'll be right back.
Got it. All right, chat. Now that's just the two of us. Doug, 500 miles on my first motorcycle was doing the required break-in service, and it included torquing the heads, 7 foot-pound. Turns out that a big torque wrench isn't calibrated for 7 pounds. Had to take the whole piston out and get a new head bolt. Oofa. That is also a cylinder bolt. Not too bad since it was all new parts. Yeah. Yow. So you had a motorcycle that part of the break-in period required you, the owner, to torque the heads down, or the head. Uh, wow. Yeah. That I could see that not being ideal at all. Luckily, I haven't had anything that major. I've been trying. Nope, nothing like that. Steve goes, I see foamed my old '03 Legacy Outback wagon at night and went for a 3 mile ride down the main road by me back and forth a few times. And after my third time, there were cops and a fire truck rushing down the road trying to figure out where the smoke was coming from. How I knew, I read the township's post the next morning about the mysterious smoke I dumped. I dumped the whole bottle in it. Okay. Anytime the authorities have to be involved, that is less than ideal. We'll go with that. At the very least, at least nothing was actually on fire. For obvious reasons, fire bad, to quote Frankenstein's monster. But yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I've been actually watching a lot of like Demo Ranch and his second channel Off the Ranch lately, and a lot of his things is if you don't know how to do something, try it. If it doesn't work, try it again. So we learn from these mistakes, right? Like you're never going to do that with Seafoam again. Greg's always going to make sure a car is blocked anywhere near his driveway. You know, Doug is going to get a smaller torque wrench. All these sorts of things you learn and you apply it to the next project. You know, I've thought about this a lot with the Mustang and stuff, especially since we're so close to like the trans actually being at the shop and it getting the everything installed. Like as that date gets closer and closer, it's like, could I have done a lot of this work myself? And I mean, maybe. I didn't want to mess around with it because there's a lot that can go wrong, and we're talking close to 800 crank horsepower in a vehicle, so I didn't want to make a 800 horsepower mistake. I wanted, the Volvo I didn't really mind because it was only a 300 horsepower mistake, a 320 horsepower mistake. But yeah, with the Mustang. But I've also been thinking like, what my next project? Definitely want to get more hands-on. Definitely want to push myself with things I'm not so comfortable with. I have a couple in mind that might be making it to the channel in 23 if I can make the finances work, because not for nothing, but after all the mechanicals, the Mustang has probably another close to 20K left to go into it. So I got to be smart with how I choose projects and stuff. One of them could be pretty simple, pretty easy, pretty inexpensive. So we'll go from there. But yeah, my next project after the Mustang is I'm going to try to be more hands on because I do like wrenching on cars. I do like the mechanic aspect of it. I do like the pride you get in like I love the fact that the Volvo, with all the power it made and all this, and I did that. You know, it wasn't someone else. I did that to make that car into quite a little sleeper and things like that. Doug's bike was a 2005 Honda Rebel. Nice, simple, but you looked like an ape on it. Uh, One of the defining reasons why I used to want a motorcycle bad, like real bad, and I kind of outgrew it. Both I like cars more, and horizontally, I'm too fat to ride on a bike now. Um, uh, Doug has a good cop story, I think. I had the cops show up looking for a fire when I was showing my friend that his El Camino could do good burnouts in college. Memories. Yeah, we've all have stories like that. I think I've told the story multiple times on this channel about my buddy and his G35 and how I was adamant he get a manual. And when I showed him how to do the fun, he let me drift it and then never let me drive the car again. So, fair enough. Uh, and Steve's nightmare, he did it at 1 in the morning. Yeah, I've been there. A lot of the work I did on the Volvo were after hours. So I wouldn't start working on the C30 until roughly 8, 9 o'clock at night. So I know like the intake manifolds, I didn't finish that until 3ish, 4ish in the morning. Because anything I started that caused my car to be immobile, I had to finish before the following day or the following Monday, because I did all the work in our shop at work. And if a Volvo's in the way, the mowers, the seeders, all the equipment couldn't get out. So, yeah, definitely no working late, doing that sort of stuff. I am thankful I didn't make any major mistakes on that build because, I was pretty dang tired at the time. And that's a simple job. It's probably the easiest manifold I've ever done, but it wasn't easy in the sense that it's like anything else in that part of the engine bay. Clearances are tight. You know, getting the wrench in or the ratchet wrench in isn't ideally suited. So you're at a lot of awkward angles, tough to get leverage. I also have some issues with my thumbs. They're not as strong as they once were, so that can be a problem as well. Steve also had a Rebel. It got creamed by a dumbass not paying attention. Whoa. That's almost got creamed by a dumbass. Woo, okay, misread that. Then sold it. Yeah, that's the thing with motorcycles is you are the crumple zone and part of the freedom, but part of the danger with it as well. So, all right. So, guessing Greg isn't back yet. So the next round of things, let's see what you guys have out there. The 11 of you out there. Last week we talked about, would you rather have a fully built, maxed out, every single possible bell and whistle, all-wheel drive, big turbo, built motor, the whole nine, C30, or a V8 Vantage, Aston Martin. Greg wanted the sorted nature of a full build, whereas the Aston is it. I did drive that for a while, and it's just it does the thing the Volvo never could, and that is make you feel special. Just driving it at driving around town speeds. The C30 was a great car. It was a fun car. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the opportunities it afforded me, but there was nothing like that Aston. Nothing even close. Like the Mustang is close, I should say. Mustang, I do feel special driving it around, even if it is a bit common compared to the Aston. But the noises the Mustang and the Aston make, the uh, just the look of it, the way it's just a special car. And I'm not sitting here and saying I was any great shakes, but driving it around, it was enjoyable to drive, even if you weren't having fun with it, if that makes any sense. But one of the things I want to do with Greg, and this could be a regular thing, so if you guys ever have ideas, just throw them for our supporters and stuff. You can throw those in the supporter page. Would you rather? And because I think that's a really cool debate, and because we all love cars and we love them for different reasons, and it's interesting to have those conversations. Doug, even I'd say the Vantage, but would rather have a Viper if that's our price range. I'm close. That's actually pretty darn close for me. So I love the technically second gen Viper. So the first gen was the RT10 with no creature comforts. The second gen was the same body style, but that was the coupe. And it had some creature comforts. And to me, that's peak Viper body design. The last gen Viper tried to copy and emulate it, and it did a very good job of it. And I would still love one of those. But the first Viper, Doug goes, Gen 1, oh, simple, only death. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you've driven the coupes. They're not exactly tame because you have effectively a truck motor that was cast in aluminum, et cetera, that does one thing and one thing really, really well, and that is torque and a metric ton of it. That's a tough one. I'd probably go second gen Viper just because I love those. I love what they are and what they represent. It's not nearly as nice. It doesn't sound as good as the Vantage. Those V10s can sound epic, but they're kind of like two low revving 5 cylinders having an argument, and it kind of creates a higher pitched white noise. But that being said, it's a dream car. That was the literal poster on the wall car I had as a kid. But yeah, guys, Steve, Doug, our valued supporters, any other people in here, give me one. Give me a situation, because I think what I'm probably gonna ask him is Mark IV Supra or 12-cylinder Aston. I know what his answer is going to be, but today's money, they're similar. Doug drove a 93 convertible and a 96 GTS. Love the open top cars. Okay, so I get it a little bit now. For me, there is only... Can't even think. I'm a coupe. I'm a hardtop person. Something about convertibles and the compromised nature of that inherent design, unless it's designed from the ground up, like say even the Targa on the 918 Spider or the 918 Porsche, where it's the whole structure is designed for performance and then they kind of make the body. But even so, I think those cars with the top on have better performance than with the top off. I could be wrong there. But there's pros and cons to it. With the open top motoring, you hear a lot more. Whether it be your exhaust, whether it be your just the car, the wheel. Like you hear a lot more. It feels almost more immersive with the experience as opposed to being cocooned in a cockpit. I get that appeal. I don't necessarily prefer it, but I understand it, so to speak. Steve goes, my old job had an '08 Aston Martin. It was hard to drive due to the back tires and the clutch being shot. That'll happen. That'll absolutely happen. Any car with a blown clutch, ask me how I know. Any car with a blown clutch is really tricky to drive, and then you add to the equation of not knowing if your tires are going to hook. Really, quite a we'll call it interesting drive. Gr- oh, that's the wrong one. As you can see, folks, Greg is back.
With a new hat because I just left it in my kids' room and I ain't going back in there. um, yeah, he's got strep right now, so that's always fun. And it's a 3-year-old having strep, so just poor kid. Oh man. But yes, Steve, your old job having an '08 Aston Martin, hard to drive due to back tires and clutch being shot. A lot of people don't know how to drive those cars. The Gaydon era Aston Martin, of any of them really, you have to drive it like a Carrera GT. You have to let the clutch out and almost let the car start going first, then you like get on the gas because those engines had enough torque that you could just let the clutch out and it will start moving before any slip happens. And that's actually how you save the clutch because you got that engagement point and then you got on the power from day-to-day driving. But most people just drove it like a Civic, which you can't do in those cars or else the clutches will absolutely like grenade themselves or basically wear away to a shiny coin, which is what most of them did. So yeah, a lot of people didn't realize how to drive that. It took me a solid like 4 or 5 months to figure out how to drive that thing because I was so used to driving the WRX, which was just like, oh, la la la, normal manual. And then the Aston came along, and I'm just like, oh yeah, this thing could be very expensive if I break it, so I probably should learn how to do this better. And it took a little while, but I got it.
So we tried to get chat to come up with some would Greg rather.
Ooh, all right.
So yeah, like I
like
said,
would Greg rather.
we tried to, but because the Aston Martin was so clearly the choice last week, we kind of went down an Aston Martin rabbit hole.
That's cool.
So when I was thinking about this, I was thinking about like, okay, what would you go the modded car route versus an exotic, so to speak? You know, so like, but then I was like, what if we did similar values? And one that I'm pretty confident I know your answer, and I'm pretty confident I where chat's leaning. Would you rather, Greg, a V12 Aston Martin or a Mark IV Supra?
Okay. A V12 Aston Martin or a Mark IV Supra? What V12 Aston Martin? Because that's an important question.
We'll start with the Vantage and work our way to. I didn't actually get a chance to price any of these out.
Okay.
But we'll start with a V12 Vantage and go from there.
Mm-hmm. If we're talking about the V12 Vantage, I absolutely would take the V12 Vantage. Oh wait, new one or the era that I owned one?
We'll go with the correct era, which was yours.
So not the new one. That is okay. Yes. Yes, I will go with the Aston there.
Yeah, they're about. Sure. It's actually about similarly priced. Right over, just a little over $100K.
Yeah. The Vantage S's with manuals though cannot touch them for under 220. But the regular V12 Vantage, that's not an S and is an automatic. Yes, they're all right around 100, 110, 120, which is about what a decent Supra, Mark IV Supra goes for.
So
yeah, I would go with the I'd go with the Aston just because it's rarer. I feel like it's cooler. And I feel like those will actually appreciate better than the Supra over time.
Interesting.
Yeah. Just because the Supra is a car where the low mileage ones are very rare and they will, they'll appreciate in value still and everything, but there's also plenty of like ones that are tuned with crazy horsepower. The Astons are just low mileage and rare. And especially with the V12 in it, those were even less. Those are even more rare and less common than the V8s. So I feel like over time, because it's a handmade British exotic, also those will surpass the Supras as far as value is concerned.
Interesting. In this case, I'd have to agree with you.
Yeah.
I was never a Supra fan. Sorry, Steve. Um, Steve, in this game of which $100,000 car would you get given the money? Steve goes for the reliable option. I get it. I get it. It's tough to look in that.
That's funny. I just snorted laughing. That was funny.
Yeah.
But yes,
Doug goes.
that is the more reliable option.
Doug, thank you so much for the stars. I didn't even see that alert come through until this said. But he goes,
Keeping up that donation streak. Thank you,
because
sir.
I'm a stat geek, I don't want to give up the streak. Well, we're here to help you out with that.
Yes.
But this actually brings up another interesting, another point of interest is that I'm looking at DB9s, and a manual DB9, the most expensive one I could see is like, well, there was one that sold for 87,000, or that listed for 87,500, which according to Car Gurus is almost $27,000 over market.
Well, that is until you realize that the DB9 was almost exclusively sold with an automatic. And Car Gurus is not the best place to go for manual Astons because no, it's not, because almost all of them that are listed as manual are not.
I find the Facebook Marketplace.
Yeah, there are, I would say, virtually no DB9s with manual transmissions. I would be willing to wager that less than 20% of them are made with manuals, and most of those are DBSs.
Now, actually,
DBS, also a very interesting V12 Aston in that same price range.
But it also brings up another interesting point. Would you rather the big V12s or the Vantage V12?
It depends on the big V12. It's the same V12.
No, not the engine.
Big body.
The big body. So a DB9, DBS.
So here's the interesting thing about those cars. The DB9 platform, which is DB9, DBS, they are exactly the same internally, or interior-wise, to the Vantage. They basically are no bigger. The rest of the car is what's bigger, and it's almost a foot longer in, I think, both ends. It's a lot. Actually, not both ends. I think it's like many inches on each end longer than the Vantage, which is interesting. But it's about the same interior space. So the other one is the Vanquish, which I actually won't spoil it for you, but I recently gave another YouTube channel a video of me saying that car is the most beautiful car ever made, the 2014 through 2018 Vanquish, and I stand by that. I think it's to me it's the most beautiful car ever made. It's modern because I like modern stuff, and it is very good. But that opinion will come out on another YouTube channel very soon that is very large that I've been on before. So not a spoiler, but sort of a spoiler if you know what I'm talking about. I would probably, if I'm doing Vantage, DB9 platform at all, and Vanquish, I would put it as Vanquish, Vantage, DB9. But if we're talking about specialty versions, I would say Vanquish, DBS, Vantage, DB9.
So when are you buying another Vantage?
Oh man. Well, if anyone's on stream and wants to buy shifting lanes for $500,000,
whoa,
then I will buy another Vantage.
You can have Greg's share for $50,000.
No, 500,000, $500,000.
Yeah, that. Not touching me.
All of shifting lanes for $500,000. Go. Someone give us that so we can just start another YouTube channel.
So Justin goes.
Shut up, Justin.
Hear me out. Aston Martin with a Coyote swap. Here's the fun fact.
We've talked
Here's
about
the fun thing.
we've talked about this a lot.
We we actually talked about that last week and whether or not a Coyote would actually fit in there. Greg is
Yeah.
of the mindset that they fit a V12, narrow angle, I might add. And I'm of the mindset of I would love to try.
Yes.
No take
I
backsies,
mean,
Charlie. You owe Greg $500,000. That's
yes, you
legally
owe us
binding
$500,000.
Facebook binding
Yes.
live contract.
That'll hold up in court, that's for sure. Um, I mean, look, I would very much love to do that. The problem is money. That's because,
Yes.
I mean, any swap that you're not doing on your own, you're at minimum spending 15 grand. If you're doing a Coyote or LS into a Vantage platform, minimum 15, because it's been done, but not a lot. Parts are plentiful and cheap, i.e., cheapish, engines and what have you. But LS definitely fits. Been done before. Coyote, I'm not sure has been done. Maybe a lot of fab work in that. So with the Coyote, I'd say you're more looking like 25, 30, and an LS, I'd say probably 15 to 20. So again, it's a lot of money to swap engines in. That it's just, I would personally go for the LS just because I think it will. I mean, I know it will fit without having to do any fab work if you're doing that swap and it's on a budget. However, I would love to see one with a Coyote because it's just a more unique thing. Because why not shoehorn a giant V8 into a place where they've shoehorned a giant V12 with basically just two Ford motors, which is all that V12 was at that point. So
Yes.
you know,
Two of the V6s.
that's right. Two of the shows.
I mean, here's the thing. Coyote V8 in a Vantage would only make it magnitudes better. Like,
Yeah,
I mean, that's an investment you
I
will get
mean-
back like probably 100-fold.
yeah. I mean, I would probably say so. And to a lot of people's surprise when I talk about the platform, the best thing about that platform is the engine. The engines are actually quite reliable. When they are, when they're taken care of, they're not totally beat on.
Can you put boost
They're
to
not
them?
crazy supercharged. What's
Can
that?
you put boost to them?
Well, that's what I was just gonna say. They do make a supercharger kit for them, and it does take it pretty well.
And you didn't do it on yours because? And don't say money.
Because I didn't have the money. Also, because the kit is like 40 grand. So
We could have done it for
Yeah,
at
no.
least half of that.
well, the problem is fitting it because there's no room in that engine bay, vertically.
That's why God invented
So-
the cowl hood.
Yes, but if you look at the supercharger kit, it's like this thin. It's crazy. It looks like, those really sleek roof boxes you see on SUVs. They're like, how is that a roof box? It looks like just like a sliver. That's like what the supercharger kit looked like. It was like, how is that functional? But apparently it is, and it provides a good 200 horsepower to it. So it's very much like the ESS kits for the M3s. You get about 200 horsepower out of it. But yeah, it's the same for the Vantage. People do it. They do it safely, and it definitely works. Problem is, it's out of the UK, so it's already got a ship here, and they're the only ones that do it. So I mean, yeah, it's a lot. However, I if I had the money, I would have done it. That'd have been really cool.
You are so lame.
Charlie, thanks for joining. See you later.
Not
bud.
you, Charlie. Sorry to see you go, buddy. Greg is lame, just to clarify.
You're also lame for leaving. Stay, damn it.
No.
Just kidding. Yeah, I mean, but going back to the original topic, between V12s, yeah, I would probably say the modern Vanquish, just because it is my ultimate dream car. If I had enough money, I would go out and buy one tomorrow. I think it's gorgeous. There's lots of unique stuff about that car that a lot of people don't know. A lot of the panels of that car are made out of carbon fiber. which a lot of people think, oh, it's probably just another aluminum Aston, but most of it's carbon fiber. The V12 sounds disgustingly good with an exhaust in that car. Sounds good as it is, but like with an exhaust, incredible. And yeah, it's just gorgeous. To me, it's the best GT car ever made.
Interesting.
Yeah.
How do we put it in the Volvo? And when I say the Volvo,
again, we need money.
Let's put it in the 245. Who's the guy building your Volvo? There's V12s out there. Just put them in.
Jesse. Yeah.
I mean let's just say we're putting in 3 red blocks.
Yes. So we'll lop one red block in half and make that 2. Then we'll put 2 red blocks against that, and then we'll meld them all together.
We'll call it the reddest block.
Yes.
Red blocks.
I like it.
Roblox. There you go.
Roblox. There you go. Thank you, Steve. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
We will, when you win Powerball, we will gladly accept your venture capital money.
Yes. I mean, let me put it this way. If I won Powerball, I wouldn't necessarily tell a lot of people. There'd be signs. Like Greg and I doing this in a studio inside of our garage. And when I say garage, I mean at minimum 15,000 square feet.
Yes. Garage / workspace / vlog space / where we keep all of our exotic cars and high horsepower builds.
I just want a garage that's big enough for me to do donuts in.
Yes, 50,000 square feet will do that.
15. 50,000 square feet, we might as well have a fucking...
No, I said 15.
Okay, I was going to say, 50K, we're having a swimming pool.
50K, we're living there, let's be honest.
I mean, I am. No kids allowed. I don't need those walking petri dish to skin my...
Dude, at 50,000 square feet, all 3 of Shifting Lanes can live there plenty easily and never see each other.
Look, we'll put it to you this way. We'll have an estate, and in the backyard, there's a rather large swimming pool that connects close to the 3 homes. Mm-hmm. And then down the hill from there, the racetrack. And that's fine. Because then I can lock my door and be like, Greg, keep your patient zeros away from me.
Yes. Martin has a good question. Why not put a Yamaha V8 out of an S80 or XC90 in the 245? An excellent question.
Yes, Greg. Why are you not doing that?
I would love to do that. 2, there are no really good trans options for that car, or for that engine, honestly. There's the 2 that it came with. There's almost no manual that will fit that thing. And there's almost no adapter plates. An M66 will, but with considerable tweaking. And I'm not sure I think it's been done, but I haven't looked into it enough to confidently say that would work. I want to say someone's done it, but I don't really remember. I would really like to do that. I think that would be very cool. But
that's why people made SolidWorks and plasma tables, and you'll get your conversion.
Yes.
Gosh.
So I would love to do that. I think that would be really cool. Again, it comes down to money, and doing a swap like that into an older platform would be too much, honestly. And for the blue 245 that I have out in Oregon, so I don't know, Martin, if you know, but we have 2 245 builds right now. One is being done by a guy named Aaron Whitesell, who's a supporter of the channel. He's usually on stream here. He is in Pennsylvania. The other one is the one from way back, still out in Oregon, that is now being taken over by a new shop. He's also a supporter of this channel and an OG subscriber of the YouTube channel, like way back, named Jesse. But the whole point of that car out west was to make it as if Volvo made a 245R, and to be period correct. So I want an M46 transmission. I want a red block turboed. And to basically make it like as if they made a V70R in the 245 platform. That was the whole premise of that build. And I want to finish that build in that goal first before doing anything else to that car. So getting that car finished is the first thing that happens. Maybe we do a V8 swap in the green one. I don't know. Maybe we get tired of the engine in the blue one real quick and do the V8 swap in that. I don't know. Both cars are still vaporware at this point. They exist, but they don't exist in my garage. So I can't really say if I'm going to or not. I would love to. I think it'd be really cool. But yeah, we'll see what the future holds with them. I think getting them here and making content with them first is the first goal. And then maybe in a year or two down the line, if budget, gives us the ability to, then yeah, we could potentially do a V8 swap. And Doug has an M66, but it needs rebuilt. Also an option. We could have an M66 rebuilt to be a little bit stronger and maybe handle that V8 pretty well. That V8 also is not very tunable, or there's only one person I know of or I've heard of ever that supercharged that thing here in the US, and I don't think it's working out too well. So I don't know, maybe we'll give it to the guys at Blue Sky and be like, hey, figure this out.
I mean, if that happens, it's getting a Coyote.
Well, I was gonna say, if that's the way it's going, he's getting a proper, modern V8 then.
Well, here's the thing. We had this conversation, it might have been last week, it had to be last week. You have two 245s. One of the 245s can pay to make the other 245 more epic. Theoretically speaking.
Right. So finish them both. Sell the one which I'm just like, okay, I'm not in love with this one. And then use that money to then mod the 245 to do a V8 swap or something else cool.
No, and I mean, here's the thing. I'm probably going to annoy all of the Volvoists, but I'm sorry. Turbocharged 4-cylinder is cool, but I mean, I would sooner you do a white block swap or
consider that.
Do I don't know how feasible it is. I got to imagine it's doable, but it'd be interesting to do a V70R driveline all-wheel drive in a 245. I think that would be kind of cool.
That would be cool. I'm not sure if that's possible, but that would be really cool.
I mean, mechanically speaking, you really, if you could figure out how to mount it, which shouldn't be too much trouble for someone who knows what they're doing, then it would just come down to axles and drive shafts. And, I mean, programming would be the problem there. Which means white block into a manual transmission of your choosing, a Tessa all-wheel drive Volvo GTR.
I like that. Yes.
But here's the thing, right? And we were kind of chatting about this before, not you and me, you and me and chat. Steve, pleasure as always. We'll catch you in the next one.
Yes. See you next week, sir. Thanks for joining.
But you have flexibility. I mean, not for nothing.
Yeah.
You could quite literally sell all three cars when they're done. The 245, the 245, and the Polestar. And then the world is your oyster, especially if you get like a decent commuter car.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I could just get like an old Camry for $15,000 at that point, and then.
And by old Camry or Toyota,
do whatever the hell I want.
By old Toyota, you mean ISF.
Oh yes, I mean that. Yeah, that one. But yeah, no, it's a good point, and that's another point I was actually just gonna make is like, say I get both 245s, and I'm like, yeah, these are cool, but I'll be 100% honest. It's been 3 years since I gave a 245 to somebody to build, so I've been waiting a long time.
You gave multiple 245s to build. The first one didn't work out.
Well, the first one was. What do you mean the first one didn't work out?
Wasn't the first one too rusty or something? So they had so they used parts off of that and a different shell and.
Yeah, so that blue one's actually 3 of them combined. It's basically the Captain Planet of 245s by our powers combined.
By the power of Grayskull.
Yeah. So I mean, I could get both of them here. Like again, I don't know until I drive them. I could get both of them here and not like them at all. In which case, that's fine. They're complete cars. They're good. It's not like they're bad cars or anything. I just have fallen out of favor with them. I won't know that until I get them here and live with them and start driving them. And at which point, if one of them comes sooner and I start driving that one and I'm just like, man, I just really am I'm not into this platform anymore. Then we sell that, finish the other one, sell that immediately too, and then I get something else interesting. A V8 two-door sports car, a sweet turbocharged six-cylinder import. I don't know.
Greg
There's a lot
White
of options
block
you can make
swaps
because
in S2000.
I mean, absolutely, hell yes. That would be awesome if we could find an S2000 with a blown engine because I don't think those exist. but yeah, but something like that. Like I've always wanted to do a white block swap into like an old MG hatch, which were just cool cars. And you get a little like fender flare on that and like a cool modern engine in it. Those are neat cars, but like something like that, or even a C6Z06, really special car and engine. There's just a lot you can do, and the way that 245s are going for price wise, both of those cars should at minimum net me between $20,000 to $25,000 to work with if both of them sold when they're complete at minimum. So we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. They're still each half a year to a full year out from being completely done. The blue one being, of course, a little bit further along because the green one we just got. So we'll figure it out. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. So Martin, of course, found that there's an adapter for a white block to the CD009 because that transmission literally has an adapter
of course there is.
Every engine.
Yeah, I mean, it is one of the best universal transmissions ever made, ever.
Yeah. It's so much so that they're still using it.
That transmission is legendary.
They are still using it in the new Z.
I know.
Justin goes, V8 two-door sports car. You mean the shifting lanes Ford GT? I mean, we have a two-door Ford Mustang GT.
I wish we had a Ford GT.
That the ultimate dream on that car is just because it's different. Built motor, 2 superchargers.
That would be a lot.
Basically gunning for 11 to 1300 horsepower at the wheels.
Yeah, pretty much. At that point, you're going to build it even further. You're going to Texas 2K, basically. So.
I mean, yeah. At that point. Yeah.
At that point, you're doing half
But let me
miles.
put it to you this way: before I start looking into the 1,000 horsepower range, I want to do another 500-ish horsepower build.
Yeah.
Or maybe even just build, because it has built. Or like I said, we become cash rich, and I can do like a 350, 360 horsepower, like that make for a crazy build off series. I mean, if you got the MGB with the white block, and I did a 510 with a screaming K series, I think that'd be a lot of fun. But that's also carry the probably $250,000 to combined for both cars.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because not only are those cars cool, but they're also very old. So a considerable amount of restoration would probably need to happen. I would imagine you'd probably have to send them off to some chassis shops at that point to get new chassis for them, especially to handle a little bit more power than they're used to. Depending on where you source the cars from, of course. But
I mean, you'd have to do the biggest thing there is you'd be building a roll cage in them just for chassis flex.
Oh yeah,
but
for sure.
That would make, I mean, it's the complete opposite of what I'm doing now, which is boosting an American V8.
Right.
But I've always had a soft spot for small displacement engines that rev. And I think it'd be cool to put something like that in there. Like again, like a stroked 2.5 liter K series will rev past 9,000 RPM and make about 360 horsepower. The Vessel would be the .510, and that would sound insane.
Yeah. That'd be cool. I would love to see that.
Yeah.
I'd love to see you do it in a wagon, but I know you won't. I know you do the 2-door. So
The wagon,
I'm still cool with it.
the wagon, I'd be tempted to put like the 2-door. So the 2-door, the inspiration behind the 2-door is basically Bob Sharp Racing and Paul Newman.
Yeah, I know.
So
cool.
You know, and it also fits better with your MGB project.
Yes, true.
Not that has any bearing on what I do, as opposed to, oh, Greg's having success with Volvos. Let me try it. All right, this is going really well, Mustang.
Yup. Pretty much.
So, but
yeah, it's so funny. This adapter plate that Martin sent through, Volvo white block and Toyota 2JZ to 350Z, 370Z. It's funny. It's like it's the white block and the 2J. This is the adapter plate for.
that is interesting.
Yeah.
Not for nothing.
Because straight engines.
I mean, don't get me wrong.
largely
I'm
the same
sure
length.
there's a white block to CD009 plate out there.
Mhm.
That specific link. Let me see. Let me take a look at this.
I would say it's probably 2 straight engines with roughly the same amount of length. That's probably why.
Well, it's a transmission adapter plate. That has engine length, doesn't have anything to do with it. It's bolting. It's taking the bolt pattern of the engine and mating it to the bolt pattern of the transmission when they weren't designed to be that way.
Yeah, maybe it's when the angle gear is gone, and you actually make it a straight 6 or a straight 5 with the white blocks. I would
But
say
that's
why when you get rid of the angle gear, it has a pretty similar bolt pattern to it, or the same. I don't know.
A great illustration of how adapter plates are made and their general like concept behind them is the Skid Factory. Shoot, what the hell? Stagia, where they put a V8 in it, but used GTR transmission, all-wheel drive system, etc. And the plate itself was probably about 2.5 inches thick, and you had, again, one side was the bolt pattern for the V8, the other side was the bolt pattern for the trans, because they never made a bell housing that went from that trans to that V8. Some of the other swaps, you just change the input shaft out and you change the bell housing, and the bell housing has your engine bolt pattern here and your trans bolt pattern here. So, I mean, let me put it to you this way: there's no such thing as an adapter plate that's impossible to make, because all it is pretty simple CNC work. Not something I could do tomorrow per se, but it's a pretty simple thought. You figure out where the bolts need to go, make it strong, give it some relief cuts if you need to. So I mean,
because it's all about cutting tolerances and like how fine you get everything. And when you put things into the machine, you obviously get like the tolerances that are almost exact to what it needs to be. So you can make whatever you want, honestly, as long as you have the right trial and error, and then it works. Well, now you have the measurements, and you can now create that again.
Right. So naturally, Yamaha V8 and the 245. Good.
I'm down. Let's do it.
All right.
Screw it.
Fantastic. Kids, you're going to county college.
Yeah, kids, you're getting student loans regardless of what daddy does with his cars, because you will know the value of $1. And then if I'm rich enough, I'll pay it off at the end. But you will still have those loans through college, so you get scared.
Your license plate at that point in time just needs to say college fund.
Oh man, yes. Tell you what, if I and by extension we through Shifting Lanes get rich enough that I can own something exotic and very cool, I will get the vanity plate college fund and I will put it on there. That will be excellent.
Yeah, Martin.
Yeah. SI6 actually is a cool and would be an interesting swap, which is the engine in this thing.
Yeah.
That would be a very cool swap into the 245 as well. A straight, but make it an actual straight six and not a transverse inline six, like it is, which is such an oddball. But yeah, I think that would be a very cool one as well because it's a great engine and it is reliable actually. For a lot of the Volvo's engines, there haven't been a ton of crazy reliable ones. White blocks, okay. Red blocks, legendary reliability. The V8s are good, but the transmission lets them down. So, but this one seems to be one of the probably top 2, 3, or 4 engines they've ever made. Thank you, Ford.
Doug asks, "Is there an option to move the rear belt to the front?" I have no idea what he's talking about, Greg.
Yeah, so there's the belt is in the back of the engine instead of the front.
The what? So your accessories are in the back of the engine?
Have you go look at my most recent reel, and I show you the engine bay with the engine cover off. It's interesting.
Why?
The AC compressor is back there too.
Okay, doesn't change the question. Why?
I don't know. I didn't design it.
You know what? It's got to be.
It's
got to be fitting in the engine bay. It's got to be.
I would imagine, yeah, it has to be because it's a long engine to fit transversely.
Apparently, to Martin's point about it being shorter, it is the way the accessories. And Doug backs that up as well. I mean,
get it to fit. Yeah.
Here's the thing: you have the engine. I think the only thing is to try. Sure, the Polestar will be down for a minute or 12. That's interesting though. I mean, that's to me when builds start getting like really interesting. It's like, I like this chassis, but what motor would I put in it? Well, and right. I don't like kind of the, what's the word? Sort of cliche swaps. LS, been done. I've said K swap, but
sure.
And AK. Most of the K swaps happening now are turbo because you could get, 500 horsepower out of those with ease. 2J swaps been done to death. So like interesting swaps. And
like that recent V12 into that WRX. That was cool. That's a cool swap.
How?
I don't know, but it exists.
I mean, I guess it makes sense because I've seen 2J swaps in Subarus and stuff. So,
yeah, it was a modern one. It's the hatch that I had, like 2011 through 2014.
Yeah.
And they put, I want to say it's a Toyota Crown engine.
I mean, that would make sense. That's the easiest thing.
Or maybe a Mercedes.
Well, the Crown motors, the 1GFE, those are...
Now I want to see what engine it is.
Probably the easiest way to get into the V12 life. And when I say the easiest way, I mean the most affordable to buy.
Yes. Yeah, it is Toyota. Let's see what it is, though.
There's only one Toyota V12.
Dude. Oh, really?
Production V12, I should say.
What was it again?
I think it's the 1GFE. I might be missing.
1GZ FE. That's it. Yep. Yeah. So it is. It's a 1GZ FE.
Well, did you ever see the one where it had ITBs and everything, like fully custom, and what that thing sounds like?
No, I have not seen that, but I want to now, and I'm going to look at that as soon as we're off. Also, John, good to see you on stream, man. John Logan, thanks for watching on YouTube, dude. There's a V12 at his local junkyard right now. Get it, John. Just stash it. Oh, look at that.
this guy. So all of what you see is custom.
Yeah, I would imagine.
But yeah, I saw that,
Sounds
and
about right.
that's one of the that is an engine I've always wanted to play around with. It's just
Yeah.
there's a lot. So like the guys playing. So there's also a Supra that Top Secret, I think, put one of these in, and they literally developed custom pins, pistons, connecting rods, crankshaft, and make well over 1,000 horsepower with it. But the interesting thing with this is it has two ECUs, one for each bank.
Makes sense.
But yeah, it's like I said, that's an engine I've always wanted to play with. Speaking of the Skid Factory, they put one of these into a Land Cruiser with a turbocharger on it. So if you're interested in this motor and want to see kind of an in-depth breakdown of swapping it in, yeah, cool engine. And
yeah. Apparently, I'm getting reverb to Doug.
it was probably because you spoke while the video was playing, and it's picking up.
Yes.
Streamlabs is picking you up, and
Yes.
the desktop audio is technically picking you up.
Yep.
So anyway, on to our fifth topic of... No, I'm kidding.
I was gonna say. It's probably a good place to call it.
Yeah, I think...
it's been 2 hours.
No, I think you're right. Thank you to Doug for the stars. Thank you to everyone who watched. Thank you to everyone who's still here.
Yes.
We will catch you guys next week, where I think I'm going to try to put Greg in a really awkward... No, I'm just kidding. Greg's going to do the stream next week shirtless, so maybe that's our first podcast.
There's no rules.
Okay, and we're off. But again, all joking aside, thank you to everyone. Thank you for supporting this. Thank you for making this a fun couple hours every week.